Welcome to Speak Your Mind on Gold FM and also FBC TV. Today, the focus of our discussion is on the dry spell, and most signs are pretty obvious, especially in the west, brown vegetation and dry creek beds as well. And we'll also look at the importance of conserving water. And joining us for our discussion this morning is Sekwave Uluinayao, the General Manager, Customer Services, Water Authority of Fiji. Thank you so much for your time and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Glenn.
Okay, well, just to begin, to better understand the impact of the dry spell on the public water supply system, firstly, where does the main source of Fiji's drinking water come from?
Well, Fiji is blessed with abundance of water sources around the districts, in particular the urban areas and also in the major parts of the main islands of Viti and Vanua. And we have major systems, which is the Suvanusori and the Nandilo Toka system and the Lambasa. Those are the major systems in Fiji. And we have the district systems, water supply systems, and they have their own sources. So, for Nandilo Toka, one of the main sources is the Waturu Dam, and we have the Bomboa and the Saru system in Lotoka. And also for Suvanusori, we have the Waimanu and the Savura and Waila system.
And this feeds off the Rewa River? That's the main source?
Yeah, that's for the Waila system, and it's from the upper Sawani river. And for the Tamavua, it's fed off from the Savura.
So when you talk about water, that's, in the rivers, the primary source is rain?
Yeah.
So, when you're looking at rain is the primary source flowing into rivers and then, filling our reservoirs, pumped through many kilometers of pipes into our homes. However, in a dry spell, what happens to rainfall?
Yeah, that is where we're coming from in regards to this, the awareness that was launched on Friday to inform the public just to take heed of the dry spell and to use water sparingly, because when there's less rainfall, we experience a low yield at our water sources, the intakes. So it results in low production levels at our treatment plants.
So aside from low rainfall, there's also warmer temperatures, and how are you associating this as well with climate change? How does warmer temperatures brought on by climate change, significantly impact our drinking water?
Yeah, for the warmer temperatures, our team are currently working with the other stakeholders, which is the Met Office, and also we've been having stakeholder meetings with NDMO, and in order to create that partnership in working towards these climate change issues that we're currently experiencing.
Could you also give us a current reading of our reservoir levels?
Right now, I cannot go into the details of the readings for the levels, but 60%, I can just state 60% of our water sources are still in normal stages, and 40% approaching critical. That's throughout Fiji.
Which areas in particular?
The areas that are greatly impacted are in the west and the northern region.
Mm-hmm. And also, just talk about water. How are you prioritizing water allocation during this dry spell? Is it for domestic use and then agriculture and commercial? Could you explain that a bit to us?
Right now, we haven't declared, like the Met or the NDMO haven't declared a drought. That's after they have some criteria in place before they declare that drought situation. Currently, it's a dry spell, and what we're doing at Water Authority is trying to educate the public in regards to minimizing water usage and to use water sparingly throughout this period to take us through this dry spell period.
And on the ground, you're already cutting water. Can you tell us how many liters of water have been supplied so far? And if you could provide us a summary of the West and other parts that are affected.
In our rural areas, rural communities where our network does not cover, so they have their own community water systems or boreholes. These are currently facing issues in regards to those individual community boreholes, and most have dried up, and we are currently assisting them through water cutting through the trucks delivering water to these communities in the rural areas. And as I said earlier, most of it is in the western and northern region. And
when you're looking at, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and also we're currently working with our commissioners, the divisional commissioners under the Ministry of Regional Development or Rural Development, and we're also cutting water to the maritime areas through the barge.
When you highlighted the particular areas affected right now, you spoke about the Western Division and also the North. And islands as well, like Yasawa and Mamanuca, they're cutting water there now. What percentage of the population is that in terms of Water Authority of Fiji customers?
Currently, I don't have a figure on that because what we mainly focus on is these rural communities. We work with the divisional commissioners with them in regards to the rural community. That's apart from our network committed customers.
On Speak Your Mind, we're talking to Sekove Uluneau, the General Manager, Customer Service Water Authority of Fiji. And also, if you have any questions on water cutting or any other questions that you have, you can call 322-0906. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind. And of course, we're talking this morning to Sekove Uluneau, the General Manager, Customer Services, Water Authority of Fiji. Just before we go, into conservation, water, not only is it used to grow things, it's also used to make things like electricity, and that requires an enormous amount of water. But diesel as well, the diesel fuel to meet electricity demands. Do you need to run your pumps with diesel generators if electricity supply is affected? And do you have enough fuel provision?
Yeah, we've got plans in place when there's a power cut, and we've got standby generators to keep the treatment plant operating in our pump stations.
Let's just go into conservation. This is quite a priority now, during this dry spell. Let's discuss the importance of conservation and the ways it can be done for households and, say, farmers as well.
Yeah, at this time, we're just urging the public to minimize on their water usage. And as we all share the same resources, as particularly we're cutting the same treated water that's been treated through our treatment plants to the rural areas. And we don't want to stretch our resources to the extreme that we cannot cater for the people affected at this stage. That is basically those in the rural areas. And we're just urging the public just to do a bit in minimizing water usage and to use water sparingly during these 2 months that's been earmarked for this dry spell.
And still on water conservation, are there restrictions already in place? For example, for hotels, commercial entities like, the draining or filling of swimming pools, or even inflatable ones, as it's going to, as it will get hot very soon.
Yeah, those are some of the plans we have later on when we go into this a few weeks. If we've reached that critical stage, then we will start implementing those measures. And that's when the water restriction will apply, when it will depend on the stakeholders' input there through the FijiMet and the NDMO office.
Just going back to swimming pools, when you look at economic activity, for example, in Nandi, you're looking at the tourism sector. How is water being reserved for this sector?
Well, the hotels, they have their own system and backup system. And for swimming pools, I believe they have that some have recycled water systems in place. So right now, we're not having any issues with commercial entities. And so it's like system is running as normal. But we are looking ahead to the next few weeks. What could happen if this dry spell continues without any rain in the next few weeks?
And, also the dry spell, the temperatures is very favorable for fires, and it's also making fighting fires very difficult. What's the allocation for the water for the fire authority?
Yeah, as I said earlier, the system is currently operating as normal. And we've the plans in place for National Fire Authority. And right now, there's nothing we haven't set to discuss with them on when we get there. So we're holding our stakeholders meeting right now for this last 2 weeks, and we're holding it again today. And we want to discuss with the stakeholders to plan our way forward.
Can customers make requests for water cutting services? Is there a number that they can reach the Water Authority on?
Yeah, that's the message that we've been sending out for the last since the launch on Friday, and that's for customers who are facing water issues, especially in the rural areas. We've reactivated the toll-free line, the emergency toll-free line, for them to put in their request for water cutting. We supply water, deliver water to the doorstep, and that is 1507. And they can call through any networks.
Just repeating that toll-free number again, it's 1507. Water cutting schedule, where customers can track the days of the week and their areas and on when water cutting trucks will be deployed. Is there any way that they have, access to this?
Yeah, we've published that in the media the weekend before. And we've also sent those schedule to the district advisory councillors and all the stakeholders in the communities, Turangani Koro, and apart from the government stakeholders, which is through the DO and the provincial office. And apart from that too, our water cutting trucks, we have a teleman on board, and they're also issuing the schedule to every household that they deliver water to, so people can be aware of the delivery times or the days. And so we urge customers to use that water wisely during that period, because it's a weekly schedule. So we're delivering them around 2,000 liters per household.
And also, just in terms of agriculture, because the area that's being impacted right now is, the Fiji's largest producing agriculture sector. Is outreach? You did speak about stakeholders. You're meeting with stakeholders. Is outreach happening on the ground with farmers on best irrigation practices?
Right now, I don't have any information on that. We'll have to discuss that in the stakeholders meeting, and that's the plan meeting for this afternoon.
And just remember that toll-free number again, 1507. You can call Water Authority of Fiji if you need water cutted, or if you also need a schedule of when, deliveries will be made to where you live. This is Speak Your Mind, and of course our guest this morning is Sekove Uluinayao, the General Manager, Customer Services, Water Authority of Fiji. Welcome back. This is Speak Your Mind on Gold FM and also FBC TV. And of course, we're speaking to Sekove Uluinayao, the General Manager, Customer Services, Water Authority of Fiji. Now, there's a budge that's the maritime areas. They're also impacted by the dry spell, and there's a budge that's also going out. Would you, care to give us details on that?
Yeah, it's through the Ministry of Rural and Maritime Development, where we coordinate together with the Water Authority of Fiji. They organize the budge, and we supply the water to be delivered to the maritime islands. And as of this week, like the Eastern Division, the Loma Viti Group, the MLC Singapore is currently cutting water to Motiriki this week. And so those are some of the plans in place. And from in the Lau Group, the same barge will be cutting water to Ave Island from next week, and before it goes to Vikumbia. These are some of the affected islands, islands that have been affected by these water issues. And for the Northern Division, the Northern Lau and the Vanua Levu Group, we have the MLC Vunilangi that will be cutting water to Ruanrua this week, and also to Nandongo, Nambawono, and Vunikondi, which is the northern tip of Vanua Levu, before it goes to Taviuni. That's the plan for the next 2 weeks, where these barges will be delivering water to, and also will be followed up by the Nalele and Vuninuku, Vatulele, now Torvatu, and the Kombe School. And for the western, the MLC Vatulawa, this week is cutting water to Naviti in the Yasawa Group before it goes to Angeta and Nadula in the following weeks. So these are some measures that have been, some assistance offered through the coordination with the Ministry of Rural Development. And we hope that more coordination efforts with relevant key stakeholders to ensure that people are assisted during this dry spell period.
And as the dry spell prolongs as well, there was an advisory that you were telling us about earlier about people needing to store water. Could you just give us some more details?
We've been issuing that advisory, like we're urging the public or customers to at least store 2 days water supply, and this is to be used for emergency purpose and as a backup to sustain them during that period before assistance arrives. So we're urging customers to, during this dry spell period, to store water for at least 2 days to sustain them before assistance arrives. And just to reiterate, if they need assistance or in regards to water cutting, they should call 1507, which is a toll-free line. And with that, we hope customers do utilize these services provided. It's free of charge, and so we want them to call us and engage with us so we can assist them better. And with that, we customers must ensure when they're calling this number, requesting for assistance, they must get a service order number, a ticket, to ensure that it's been logged and that request has been confirmed as part of our process.
Well, speaking to us then is Sekwave Uluinayao, the General Manager, Customer Services, Water Authority of Fiji. A little later on the show as well, we will be speaking to the Director, Fiji Meteorology, Ravindra Kumar, and he will define what a dry spell is for us. Mr. Uluinayao, I thank you so much for your time. Thank you for appearing on Speak Your Mind. Welcome to Speak Your Mind on FBC TV and also Gold FM. And well, this part of the show, we will be talking to the Director, Fiji Meteorology, Ravindra Kumar. Thank you so much for your time. So for actually flying over here this morning.
Thank you very much, and good evening to all the viewers.
All right. So just to begin, how was this dry spell declared? Were there indicators like low rainfall? Can you explain this to us?
What we see that during every year, our dry season starts in May and ends in October. And most driest months are June, July, and August. So what we do is that we continuously monitor the rainfall stations, especially around the country, and we see how does the rain differs in different regions. And based on those, we normally see that during the dry season, the rainfall in many areas or many parts of the country reduces significantly, and this is the case what has happened during this current dry season.
Well, sorry, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, so we see that many parts of the country are receiving at least no rain or very little rain for almost 10 or 11 weeks now.
We'll go into detail on the actual reading. But also, just tell us, when you talk about a dry spell, they kind of refer to it as a creeping disaster. It's very hard to tell when it starts, but how long has this dry spell been going on for?
Okay, this is actually we call it in the terms of it's a slow onset events, and this normally doesn't becomes evident when we really see that its slow impacts are coming in. So basically for this particular season, we saw that the rainfall in May was quite good, and first part of June we started to experience some low rainfall. However, from middle of June, July and August, the rainfall reduction was very significant.
How long is this dry spell expected to last?
The expectation for the next 2 to 3 months is that the trend towards normal, or normal means to say as usual we get our rains in different months, or less than normal rainfall is predicted for September and October. So should this trend continues, then we'll see that the dry spell may prolong into October.
So just going back to the rainfall and the low rainfall that's received, how much rainfall would the West normally receive, and how much less now during the dry spell? Could you share some readings with us, and also for the North and other islands in the Eastern Division?
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, especially when we look at the amounts of rainfall that we have been receiving, let me put it into different months. June, we had a reduction of rainfall about by 60%. July, it came to about 50% of the usual rainfall we normally get in July. And then in August, most parts of the country, including those maritime zones, they recorded less than 40% of normal rainfall. So, which means to say for over last 3 months, the accumulation in deficiency in rainfall has increased, and which is almost about half of rain that we used to get, we haven't received them.
Which areas of the country are particularly affected right now? We know it's most of the West and also, certain parts of the Eastern Division. But is this also expected to be widespread?
At the end of August, the current analysis suggests that the current dry spell has crept in even into the Central Division, where we normally get our rains more often than we get in the western, northern, or in the maritime zones. So we see that the effects are slowly creeping in, and even the measurements in the rivers, they are going towards low flows. So which means to say the impact in terms of very low rainfall is having on even the river flows as well.
Aside from the effect it has on rainfall, there's also changes in soil moisture and how it becomes, dry, and it also affects the way, how fertile the soil is, especially in terms of growing vegetables. Could you explain this a bit to us?
Okay, in terms of soil moisture, it depends on the what type of soil that the different places have. So the different types of soil have different retention capabilities of moisture. The most heat-hard area is the northwestern parts of Fiji, and through its geology, we know that these soils do not retain moisture for long. And on top of that, if we still have long hours of sunshine and the winds are dry and strong or fresh even, then the lots of evaporation from the soil or the water bodies takes place. So even 15 days of no rain at all, especially in the northwestern parts of Viti Levu, would have an effect on shallow-rooted crops.
So, when you when you factor climate change into this, but even before climate change, there were dry spells and hurricanes and floods, but I guess it will just escalate or make them more harsher. How are you associating it now? You're not just dealing with no rainfall, but you're also dealing with warmer temperatures.
Yeah, especially when we look on the climate change timescales, the prediction or the projections for the Fiji is that our dry seasons could become much drier, and even wet season can become much wetter, which means to say the rainfall variability that is expected over the climate change time scale, which is over 50 to 100 year time scales, which may see that drier than usual dry seasons or wetter than usual wet seasons.
And also, just very interesting, I was having a look at the Fiji Climate Outlook, the report from August to Jan 2019. Let's just take a closer look at that. The report highlights there's a high chance for an El Nino event to develop later in the year. What should we expect weather-wise?
Okay, thank you. This is a developing scenario, and El Nino is normally associated with southern oscillation. And this is a seesaw pattern of the atmospheric air pressure in the Pacific Ocean. So every 2 to 7 years, we see that the sea surface temperatures within the Pacific Ocean normally flips from cold to warm. And when the El Nino starts to develop, we see the sea surface temperatures in the central tropical Pacific and towards the east coast of South America starts to warm up. And this has impact on our weather and climate. What happens during the El Nino when it sets in or gets established, then the main producing rainfall system, which is the South Pacific Convergence Zone, remains further to the north of Fiji, which means to say most of the rain falls to the north of the country, which is around Solomon Islands, Rotuma, Samoa, and so forth. And the Fiji area is normally covered with dry, cool air and lots of sunshine. So this means that should it develops and establishes, then there is a likely chance that the rainfall that we normally get in the first 3 months of the wet season may still continue to be suppressed.
And that's why it's very important. When we touched with the Water Authority of Fiji earlier, they were reiterating the importance of conserving water. On Speak Your Mind, our guest is Ravindra Kumar, the Director of Fiji Meteorology. We will continue our discussion after the break. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind on Gold FM and FBC. And of course, we're having a discussion with the director of the Fiji Meteorology, Mr. Ravindra Kumar. Mr. Kumar, I wanted to ask you earlier if any records are broken with this current dry spell.
Yes, we've seen that there have been a number of records being broken, especially in terms of a very low rainfall. And the total monthly rainfall at Laudala Bay, which is just a few kilometers away from here, we got a new low now record set in August. And this we are only talking about the record set in August in the lowest in terms of the lowest rainfall. And the lowest rainfall was about 20 millimeters in the whole month of August, and this time around it's about 13 millimeters, so 7 millimeters less than which was recorded in 1996. So the 1996 record of 20 millimeters has been broken in August this year, which has only recorded about 13 millimeters of rainfall.
And 1996 was really, that was pretty historic for Fiji. But
Right.
now we're seeing records even lower than that.
Right, that's right. At the same time, in Nambawalu, that's on Vanuatu, the last record was in 1953. So it's more than a 50-year record has been broken, which was about 5 millimeters of rainfall, and it's just recorded in the last month, which is only 3 millimeters of rainfall. Similarly, at Tokotoko in Navua, the last record was again established in 1996 with about 70 millimeters of rain, and this August it was about 48 millimeters of rain. At the same time, we've got Monasavu, which really energizes our country in terms of hydroelectricity. They also recorded the lowest rainfall of 21 millimeters this August. The last record was set in 1980, which had about 81 millimeters of rainfall. So you can see that just a quarter of rainfall, in terms of that, it's about less than 60 millimeters, lower than the last record which was set.
And as the dry spell prolongs, that level could, decrease even further. It could decline.
Yeah, as the dry spell continues with very little rain or no rain, as we saw in August, then the evaporation and with the long sunshine, and the usage of water from the reservoirs will continue to be depleted, or the levels will continue to fall.
How many places have been with little or no rainfall? You have some interesting data there with you. If you could just share that with us.
Thank you. Especially when we look at the places where we normally record very less rain, and very less rain is less than 0.1 millimeters of rainfall, and then we calculate the number of dry days, and this is what we see that in Yangara, Tavua, and Rarawai, about 79 days with consecutive days with very little rain or no rainfall at all, which means to say on each day that we have been looking at, either it had 0 or it has less than 0.1 millimeters. So which is quite substantial in terms of number of days without very less rain or without any rain. And this is why we say that the northwestern parts of Fiji, with the evidence that we have number of days with dry days and the number of millimeters they normally get in different months, is the most hard hit areas in terms of the dry spell.
It's pretty significant when you're touching on that, the low rainfall that's been recorded. So what's our dry spell status right now? Is it abnormally dry, moderate, or severe?
We haven't categorized that into that, but we are still monitoring. At the moment, we have to analyze more data to see that if that can fall into a moderate or severe.
Is there any other data there, sir, that you'd like to share with us that you probably want to touch on?
Yeah, just like to mention that in terms of monitoring the meteorological drought situation, as we know, drought is a complex issue, and we've got different levels of drought, which is meteorological drought, agricultural drought, hydrological drought, and as well as the socioeconomic drought levels. So at the moment we are monitoring meteorological drought conditions, and with these types of rainfall we've seen that There are a number of sites around the country which has enough information and data. They have already moved from drought watch, which was in July, and by end of August they have moved into meteorological drought conditions. And this is including even parts of the Central Division, whole of Western Division, and as well as the Northern and some maritime islands.
So just interesting. Could you just define that for us, the difference between a meteorological and a hydrological drought?
Okay. The different levels of drought normally refers to, especially on a 3-month time scale, we see the rainfall deficiencies that normally accumulates, that would start to affect the grasslands, shallow rooted plants, and small water bodies such as small lakes, creeks, and the storage water tanks normally starts to run dry. At the same time, when we look at the hydrological or agricultural drought conditions, then we see that the most of the agricultural crops start to be affected. Short supplies in the vegetables normally starts to creep in, as well as the prices of those crops starts to go up. So those are some of the indicators that the meteorological drought has now advanced towards agricultural drought situations. The hydrological drought conditions, we normally look at the rainfall over 6-month time periods, and this 6 months time period normally provides a good measure on how do the hydrological drought is affecting, and this will start to affect the water bodies as well as the trees that are deep rooted. So these are some of the indicators that normally provide us with information what level of situation that we have moved in.
So have you done an analysis on the water bodies affected? Are you able to share some information with us?
At the moment, we have not done that analysis. However, we are getting some situation reports which Water Authority is coordinating, and that situation reports will be normally used to see that how far this current dry spell has progressed in.
And I also wanted to ask Mr. Kumar, is there a cluster that's sort of a group of agencies or partners that are stakeholders that are working together in terms of monitoring the dry spell?
Yes, there is a cluster system, especially with the National Disaster Management Office under the Ministry of Rural and Maritime, Disaster Management and Meteorological Services. And there is a water cluster, and they normally look into some of those preconditions that would lead towards this type of. So that information would be coming out from the National Disaster Management Office once those clusters meet and report on this situation.
Mr. Kumar, man, time has caught up with us, but sir, please, before you go, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, especially to the advice to the general public. The dry season is already in progress. We end with the prediction of normal to below normal rainfall. We expect the trend to continue, and we ask all consumers to conserve water and use water wisely. At the same time, I would also request that take the advisory that is coming out from the Water Authority of Fiji, as well as should there be any advisory coming out from the National Disaster Management Office, to take that seriously.
On Speak Your Mind, well, we had a discussion then with the Fiji Met Director, Ravindra Kumar. Sir, I thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the viewers.
Until next Tuesday, you have a great week ahead.